When it comes to early retirement, two of the biggest concerns are how early retirement will impact the quality of our lives and whether or not the numbers that we did to make ourselves early retire are actually enough to sustain us and not have to be able to go back to work full time. In this video, I'm going to show you how to early retire without losing the quality of your life, test if your numbers are correct, and increase your chances of not having to ever go back to work full time. Hi, I'm Nadia, one half of the Wealth Twins, where we teach you how to invest and how to live a life of financial freedom. I retired early at the age of 34, and not only have I been retired for 10 years, I have also improved the quality of my life. This is not a what I will do video, this is a video about what I did, and hopefully you'll be able to do the same and it will work for you. So let's jump into it. So first things first. If you are planning to retire early, there's no reason to fear that the quality of your life will decrease, especially if you put measures in place before you retire. None of us can tell the future, but what we can do is put measures in place that will help give us the best chances possible. One of the first ways to do this is to check the numbers you ran for your financial independence and to be able to retire early in the real world for at least 3 months. And in order to do this, you can do it two ways. One, you can quit your job and try to live off your savings for 3 months and see if it works out for you. Or two, you can do a better way, which I found, which either is taking a leave of absence or taking a sabbatical. If you have been at your place of employment for a number of years, you may be eligible for taking a sabbatical. This is an option that I think is not used enough. A lot of people take sabbaticals to go get more training in the real world, take some time off to learn or get a higher degree, and come back to their job. But a sabbatical can also be used for you to test your numbers for financial independence or your early retirement numbers to see if you ran them correctly and if they work out for you for a long time. I had reached the requirement of working for my employer for a number of years to be able to take a sabbatical, and I took a sabbatical for 6 months. The 6 months, I was able to receive a percentage of my paycheck and also make sure my numbers worked out. This worked for me because I'm a very risk-averse person. Even though I was paid during my sabbatical, it was only a percentage of my paycheck. I took that money and made sure I put it to the side, and that allowed me to only live off the savings that I had prior to taking my sabbatical, so I could run the numbers and make sure that my numbers were correct in order to be able to sustain me for multiple years. I never planned to go back to work, but I wanted to make sure those numbers I ran would at least hold me out for at least 10, 15, 20 years. Now, if you haven't worked for your company for a number of years to qualify for a sabbatical, you may be able to take a leave of absence. A leave of absence does not have to be only for medical reasons. You can take a leave of absence and you don't have to be paid during that leave. And depending on which state you live in, if you work for a company for at least a year, you're eligible for a leave of absence. Not only does a leave of absence or a sabbatical help you test your numbers in the real world, it also gives you time to plan and structure your day. One of the biggest things when it comes to retiring early is what are you going to do on a daily basis? If you weren't able to plan that before you retire early, a leave of absence or a sabbatical is plenty of time for you to get used to not having to go into an office or to your employer and work on a day-to-day basis. Having a leave of absence or a sabbatical allows you to take the time to sit back and figure out what you want to do on a daily basis and how to structure your day. If you don't do this before you stop working, I'm going to tell you, it's going to be a big surprise of how hard it is to find out what you're going to do on a daily basis. So it's better to do this before you retire early. If you truly don't want to impact the quality of your life or lower the quality of your life, I suggest you invest as early as possible. If you didn't start investing early, I want you to save as much as you can before you retire early. Now, I will be honest with you. If you didn't start investing early or have a lot of money invested, it's very hard for you to live off income from the stock market. This is despite what many people will tell you on YouTube. It is very hard to make enough income from the stock market on a monthly basis in order to be able to sustain you. You can make dividend income, but you need a lot of money invested in order to bring in a couple of $1,000s a month. Now, this is with the assumption that you are risk averse. And I'm pretty sure you are if you're looking at this video about losing the quality of your life and you're retiring early. Because people who retire early are risk averse when it comes to the money they put away for early retirement. There are many ways that you can risk your money in the stock market, but if you're a person who's looking to retire early, those are probably not options you want to take. What is a lot easier in order to make a lot of monthly income is investing in a multifamily property. This is something that I did. If you invest in a multifamily property, you take care of two birds with one stone. Not only are you able to lower the biggest cost most of us have, which is our living expenses, you also have the opportunity to bring in money on a monthly basis. If you're able to buy a multifamily, I suggest you start house hacking. If you're not familiar with house hacking is the method of living in a place and being able to rent out a portion of that place to someone else so that it either covers your rent or covers your mortgage. There's multiple ways you can house hack, but I suggest the best way to do it is to try to buy a property yourself so you can manage your living costs a lot easier, and then it will hold you over for the longest time. I think rents increase year over year, so when you own your own place, it's a lot easier for you to manage those numbers and understand what's going on over the longer term. In many areas, you'd be surprised. It's a lot easier to buy a multifamily property than it is to buy a single family house. And it can be cheaper in most cases. So don't dismiss the idea of being able to buy a multifamily property. If buying a multifamily property is out of your range, you can get a 2-bedroom apartment and be able to cover the cost of that apartment by getting a roommate and then making sure that the rent that roommate pays for the majority of the rent for that apartment. In my experience, house hacking was great because it allowed me to live rent and mortgage free for years, and it allowed me to not have to tap into the savings that I put away for retirement. It also was a great source of monthly income that helped me increase my quality of life. Now, this is a step I highly recommend to anyone who's looking to retire early. Try to buy a piece of real estate as soon as possible that is more space than you need so you can rent out a portion of that to be able to cover your monthly expenses and possibly give you some money in your pocket. My next tip is to make compromises. Being able to retire early requires that you make compromises. Many of the times, if you're seeking early retirement, it's primarily because you want the freedom to do with your time what you want to do, and you also want to get from underneath the thumb of an employer. If you analyze your life and some of the expenses that you have, you will be shocked at how many expenses or things that are happening in your life that don't really add to your quality of life. If you make compromises and scale those back, you will be able to save money and actually sit back and understand what actually does bring quality to your life, and you do more of those things. This will allow you to actually identify what brings you satisfaction. Maybe you're just doing things because you want to just relax yourself because you had a stressful day in the office. But if you retire early, maybe those things are not necessary. If you want to retire early, I'm not saying that you have to sacrifice, but compromising is something that you have to get used to, because the biggest compromise that you're making is not having to work for someone else. If that is your main goal, you'll find it a lot easier to make compromises that will actually increase the quality of your life rather than detract from it. Now, my next tip is to fake retire. I really don't like the phrase fake retire, but it's easy to remember what I want to explain here, and I'll tell you why. Just because you retire for working for someone else, it does not mean you have to retire from all activities that bring money in. If you are planning on retiring early, or you retired early, I'm going to assume you have the means to not have to work if you don't want to. You are at some point financially free or financially independent. The issue that you will come across is that many of us who retired early, and probably even yourself, are very ambitious people. And living a life of constant vacations will not fulfill you. Just thinking about myself before I retired early, I might as well have been named Carmen Sandiego. It was hard to catch me. If I had any time off of work, I was on a plane in another country as soon as possible. But when I retired early, I no longer felt the need to escape through a vacation as much as I did before, because my time was my own and I didn't have the stress in my life that I had when I was working. When that happens, you know that life keeps going on and you have to return back to life and live a life that actually does fulfill you. It gets very boring to vacation all the time, and you have to get used to going on vacations by yourself a lot, which is not something that a lot of people like to do. When you retire early or you reach early retirement, you know that life is still there and you still have obligations. Even if you do choose to travel around the world, life will still be there waiting for you. If you have skills that allow you to bring money in, There's no shame in using those skills to bring money in if you need to in order to stop you from tapping into your retirement savings. It's hard to plan for 50 years in the future. So as long as you can stop yourself from tapping into your investments or pulling money out on a monthly basis, the longer you can make sure you stay in retirement and fulfill your dream of not working for someone else and living a life of financial independence and time freedom. Early retirement doesn't mean you have to sit down on the couch watching TV and not making money every day. If you have the means to be able to make money and do it on your own time when you want to do it and it's not an obligation to you, by all means do it. You're not cheating. I don't care what other people think. You're doing what's best for you. Being independent from an employer allows you to put an idea that you have in your head out into the universe and see if it actually works. And that's one of the greatest things that you have when you are financially independent, because it allows you to rely on your own skills and your own abilities to see what you can do with this one life we all get. And the financial independence allows you to do these things without taking on risk, which is a great thing to have because many people cannot take on these kind of obligations. And I'm not telling you that you can have to be an entrepreneur or anything, but if you want to be a person who follows a passion or has a side hustle, there's nothing wrong in spending 1 or 2 hours a day or 2 hours a week on it to bring money in. Who's going to judge you? You're already doing what you want to do, and that's the main thing when it comes to retiring early. And as I said before, bringing money in on the side allows you to stay retired a lot longer. And I'm going to tell you right now, it does increase the quality of your life because you're already covered with the money that you have set aside for financial independence and to be able to retire early. But this is just extra money coming in that you can buy stuff that you want. You don't have to sacrifice. Maybe you don't have to make compromises depending on how much money you bring in. But I'm going to tell you, the time freedom and the freedom you have to use your time for whatever you want to do will increase the quality of your life moreover than any amount of money that you're going to be bringing in and any amount of time you ever spent in the office. And for anyone who's going to hate on you and say you're not retired because you have money coming in, I say to them, change your definition of what it means to be retired, especially if you're retiring way before the age of 65. Retirement doesn't have to mean you just sit down and wither away. It can mean that you have a life that you want to live and you pursue it without the obligation of having to work for someone to have money coming in. This is a new definition that I think a lot of people should adopt when it comes to retiring early. No longer do you have to picture in your head someone who's just sitting down and wasting away every day and just doing what they want to do and sleeping all day. There is a new version of retirement. And if you can pursue it, I guarantee you it will be worth your while. If you would like to find out more on how to invest to retire early and reach a life of financial freedom, join our Wealth Pack, where we teach you how to improve your finances and live a life of financial freedom as easy and safely as possible. You'll find the link in the description below. It's free to join, and just like a pack, we don't leave anyone behind. I hope you found value in this video, and check out this video here if you want to find out what I found out through the years of retiring early.